Joining me now to discuss is the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg. Mr. Secretary, thanks for joining us. So we just heard President Biden promise bipartisanship. Republicans say that he's not really trying enough. Utah Senator Mitt Romney says, quote, "I think with the experience we had with the $1.9 trillion rescue plan, he would like Republicans to vote for his plan, but in terms of meeting in the middle, that hasn't been something the Biden administration has shown." So what is your reaction to that sentiment? Republicans feel like the Biden White House ultimately does not want to compromise, especially when it comes to the price tag.
Well, when you have a plan that has the support of a strong majority of the American people, in a sense, we're already in the middle. We're just trying to get Washington to reflect that. And that does mean a very natural back and forth. We welcome the fact that Republicans have come forward with their plan. We take that as a starting point for conversations. And the president's deeply engaged. Matter of fact, I was in the Oval Office with Senator Romney and others from both parties. Just last week with the president leading a discussion about the jobs plan. We're not going to agree on everything. We get that. But the president really believes, and we really believe, in a bipartisan approach seeking to earn support from across the aisle for proposals that the American people know are long overdue.
But that doesn't contradict what Senator Romney said, which is basically that the idea of bipartisanship from the Biden administration seems to be you should vote for our bill and make it bipartisan, as opposed to, well, we'll compromise on this and you compromise on that. And instead of a $2 trillion plan, we'll pass a $1.2 trillion plan. I'm just making up numbers here, but some sort of actual compromise.
Well, look, we can certainly talk about the numbers, but there's more to compromise in bipartisanship than just trying to split the difference on numbers. We should look at the principles we can agree on, the elements that we think there need to be in the bill. Maybe there are some things they think we should do even more of. And those are the kinds of conversations that we think were launched by the counterproposal that they initiated. The president is not a my way or the highway kind of person. He is somebody who believes, as you saw in the joint address to Congress, believes passionately in America and believes we need to go big. But going big can take a lot of different forms, and that's why we're welcoming the good faith conversation with Republicans. They're not going to get everything that they like. That nobody does in a compromise or a negotiation. But we do think this is a great chance to really see where the areas of common interest are.
So you would need all 50 Democrats and 10 Republican senators to vote with you to get the infrastructure bill passed in the traditional way. Do you have a commitment from even one Republican that they are willing to vote for the bill or at least leaning towards it?
Well, we certainly have a lot of interest in the content of the bill, but of course it's early for them to telegraph how they're going to vote. That's exactly why we have this process right now, the give and take, the dialogue. But remember, the things that we're talking about here command such support among the American people, not just doing things like improving our roads and bridges and our ports and airports, but drinking water, safe drinking water for every American, making sure that every American can get access to broadband. And I would actually point out that the electric vehicle elements, which I know are probably more popular on my side of the aisle, but if you live in rural areas or less dense areas, which is where a lot of Republican legislators come from, that's where there's often the most to benefit from the fuel savings because people are driving more. And you look at some of the products that are coming out now, pickup trucks, not just the smaller vehicles you're used to seeing going around urban neighborhoods maybe, and there's a ton of this in there for parts of the country that are so-called red states. So we think this is a great time to have that conversation, both directly with the American people and with legislators in both parties and both houses.
Last time we spoke, I asked you if the Biden administration was willing to get this passed in the Senate by using a special budget rule known as reconciliation, which would allow it to pass with just 50 votes. It's just for budgetary and economic matters. Your response was inaction is not an option, which is basically also what we heard from the president last night. It sounds like you're actively considering using the reconciliation rules so that you only really need to win over Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema.
Well, I say there's a strong preference to go through regular order here, to do this in a bipartisan way, to work with the committees that have been working on these policy issues for years, way longer than I've been on the scene. They have a lot of expertise. They have a lot of bipartisan goodwill built up. That's the process we prefer to use. But as I said last time we discussed this, inaction is not an option. failing to meet this moment would be a terrible mistake. And the president is determined to see something real happen here.
The thing is, Manchin, the Democratic senator from West Virginia, really wants it to be bipartisan. He's not on board with this $2 trillion infrastructure proposal. He called his fellow West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito her Republican infrastructure proposal. He called it a good start. And he said he would want to he would want any eventual deal to focus on conventional infrastructure, roads, bridges, et cetera. It sounds like, as far as Manchin is concerned, you're going to have to compromise.
Well, look, he and the president don't disagree on the idea that a bipartisan approach is better, and that's exactly what we're doing. And I've had great conversations with Senator Capito, and again, welcome the start that her proposal represents in terms of the conversations that we're having. This is the way that we want to get this done. But in terms of these definitional arguments over what's conventional or what's not, or what we want to call infrastructure, I just hope that doesn't take away from the point that Americans need this. We need these investments. Call them what you want. But we know that child care needs to be more affordable in this country. We know that elder care is holding people back from being able to participate in the economy. We know that broadband is as important as a road connection is today in terms of being able to relate to the rest of the community and compete in the economy and even be able to do well at school. We know that we need to do these things. And the wrangling in Washington is, as it always is, convoluted and complicated. But one way or the other, we got to get there.
All right. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.